Everybody, welcome to another Roundtable. I am Eric Switzer, and I am here today with the false sovereign himself, George Foster.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing?
And the true arisen, Stacey Henley.
Hello.
Today we're here to talk about Dragon's Dogma 2, and last week we did our initial review. Meg and I covered it, and when I watched it back, I was a little bit more harsh on it than I was surprised by how harsh on it I was, because I do like this game a lot, and it seemed like Meg was a little bit surprised at how much she was having to defend this game. So I'm glad you're both here, because I think that my guess is that George is sort of unconditionally in love with this game the way he is with everything, and then Stacey's going to be even more harsh than I am. So that'll let me be right in the middle.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm liking it a lot. I don't know if I'd go as far as saying it's got the full George stamp yet, but I haven't quite finished. I've had so many moments from wow, this is gaming, which I can't believe I just said out loud. But I definitely have a lot of love for it. I'm really curious about what you two think, though, because I know, Eric, you started off kind of, I guess, like you've said, a bit harsher than you'd like on it.
Yeah, so I'll try not to exactly rehash the video we just did about it. I actually wrote a piece yesterday. The headline was Dragon's Dogma 2 is Monster Hunter with extra steps. And I think that everything I really like about Dragon's Dogma 2 is just the same things I like about Monster Hunter, and then everything else about it is bad.
That's bold. I definitely see shades of Monster Hunter in there.
Yeah, there's a big connection, I think.
Yeah.
It simplifies a lot of the Monster Hunter stuff, though, which I don't mind, but I can see people coming to it from Monster Hunter are probably going to be a little bit, I don't know, disappointed, I guess, by the scale of some of the battles. I feel like every monster you fight in Monster Hunter, there's not just the actual fighting, there's the tracking it and learning its, not just its attack patterns, but where it travels around the map and the best way to approach it. And then the battles themselves have a lot more flair, I think. Whereas the battles in Dragon's Dogma, they do have their own little incidents. Like there's, I can't remember if it's the ogre or the cyclops, or there's one of them that will pick up female pawns and will lick them.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, there's, I think they have a little bit more character across moment to moment in the battles, but really they're all just different sized health bars with slightly different forms of attack. So I do see that if you are going to compare it directly to Monster Hunter, it is definitely a downgrade in that regard with the nature of it.
Well, let me start out with something I do really like about this game, and it actually something that I think it improves upon from Monster Hunter. And I promise that won't be our only point of reference for this whole thing. The way that it handles the sort of endemic life, the endemic quality of the monsters is really well done. It really does feel like all of the creatures in the world live in that world and would be there whether you were there or not. They're not just pathing back and forth waiting to be killed. It feels like when the Saurians are setting up an ambush, that could be for you or it could be for any traveler coming through there. And the cave trolls that you find a weird cave off the beaten path and there's a troll that actually lives in there and you just stumbled into his house. And I think and also the way that the fights sometimes pile up with different monsters.
I think that's my favorite part of it. You're fighting a minotaur and then some goblins just come and go, I fancy a go.
Yeah.
They get obliterated instantly, but I still like that they can push a boulder into you.
Yeah, and you'll stumble onto a fight where a big rock guy is trying to fire laser beams at a bunch of little orcs or whatever, and like and Monster Hunter has those kinds of like turf war kind of stuff, but it all feels very scripted, and it's always like these two monsters are fighting and this one's bigger than that one and that one's going to lose the fight and leave, and you kind of, that's part of the pattern of fighting them, and you can force those encounters, but in this it felt very random. It felt a lot more like the chaos of nature, and I think that's one of the coolest things about the game.
I had like one fight, I think the most recent time I played, where there was a side quest where I had to go like find a griffin so a sculptor could like take a picture, well not take a picture but draw the griffin, and then just before getting to the point where the griffin was supposed to spawn, another griffin came in. I had to fight that, and then there were 2 trolls like just before that, so it was just like absolute pandemonium. It's like, oh, that's the side quest done. Walk up and talk to the guy, and he's like, oh yeah, let's go find a griffin. I'm like, what have you been doing? I've got like 9 of them now. And it annoyed me because they're like quite long battles. I was like, this is so cool. Like, it's the best representation of Emergent gameplay, I think, since Breath of the Wild, I'd say. I know Tears of the Kingdom lovers will probably jump in to defend that, but I will not.
It's fine, there's none here. No, I think that's its biggest problem, though, right? Because you've got these really fantastic bits. And I'm not actually going to be the harsh. I do quite like it. I find it charming. But you've got these like big, epic encounters, and you're playing it, and like you're going from place to place, and you take your pack, and you go out, and you don't know quite where you're going to go. You open up the map, and you think it's a really cool adventure, and you have all these emergent gameplay elements, and then you get to where you go, and you think that wasn't worth it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, this idea of you have to fight a griffin so I can sketch it. Other games would roll with the emergent gameplay if you're going to put that kind of element of chance in there. I don't want to just compare it to lots of other games, but if you think about Baldur's Gate last year, every approach you took to doing a mission, even if it was atypical, the game would try to respond to that. You have to do something really outside the box for the game to get confused. Mm-hmm. But with Dragon's Dogma, it needs things to be done like specifically. There's a article I wrote recently about one of the early missions. Captain Brandt tells you, go to the castle and sneak in. You don't sneak in, you're just going through a door. And I had to go in someone's room to get a letter that proved something about the false server. I can't remember exactly what it was. But I just went to the target on the map, and the guy was still in the room. He actually opened the door into my face, pushed it into me, saw me going into his room, and then just left. And then I looked around the room, I couldn't find it. I was a bit of an idiot. There was a fake, quite obvious when I saw it, quite obvious fake stone wall. But I couldn't see it, so I was like looking in the drawers, and then where is it? Saw the wall, immediately opened the door, and then at that point, there's a cutscene outside, and he hears me in the room, having just seen me, and then they chase you into the room. And it's just all very... Everything will happen the exact way that Capcom wants it to happen in the game, even though they have so much chaos in there.
Yeah, the same thing happened to me in that mission stage where I went there, and I didn't realize it was stealth because Dragon's Dogma is not.
Yeah, well, it's
it's not.
It's not really stealth.
It's not really good. And I think I got arrested. Like I think they spotted me and they're like, "Oh, you've done this wrong," and I got chucked into jail. So like there are a few outcomes for it, but I feel like I know what you mean where it feels like it's...
The thing with that is, though, it's if you speak to the guy at the fountain beforehand and buy him a music box or something, then he lives in the castle and he helps you. So there is a link, but it's still very scripted. It's not like you didn't do anything different to me in that mission. It's just I had done a random side quest. Clearly you hadn't done it. So I was able, he goes like, hide in my room. And if you haven't helped him, he doesn't let you hide in his room, which it is a little bit of variance, but it's also very reliant on the game doing it for you, as opposed to... I mean, we just said Emergent gameplay in Breath of the Wild. I regular readers of the site will know I'm not the biggest fan of Breath of the Wild, and that's why I was surprised that I liked Dragon's Dogma as much as I did, because it seems like it has all the same kind of quirks to it. But when you look at Breath of the Wild, it does have a lot of... I suppose the main story embraces that you can do whatever you want. It's a game that says go wherever you want, do whatever you want, and the main story will adapt to that. But Dragon's Dogma, the story doesn't adapt to that. It's like go wherever you want, do whatever you want, then come back here to do the story. It's like they're kind of sending you outside to go play, and then you can come back in and eat your vegetables.
For an uninteresting story as well, I might add.
It does get a lot of credit from people for like the thing that George mentioned, where there are like these different outcomes to the same quest, but they're all dead ends.
Yeah, like
nothing builds on top of itself. Like when you get what's the desert city?
Batal.
Yeah. Batal. There's a quest where you have to go to the temple, and there's a assassin there, and they want you to figure out which guy's the assassin, and he ties his hair back. And you don't have long to do it. And if you fail, he kills the queen, and then the queen's dead. And you think that's probably a pretty big deal. And there's no going back. You can't reload your save. It's like, well, in your game, the queen's dead. But what's the consequence of that? Because no one's been able to tell me. Because the queen died in my game, and I guess now the queen's dead, and that's it. And maybe there's another quest you could do if she doesn't die, but that's sort of just it. Like everything is just one.
I think I've just done that. There's no follow on from it.
Yeah, and like maybe later the queen has one quest for you to do that you don't get to do when she's dead, and that's it. Everything is just like one sort of self-contained thing that's like either this happened or that happened.
It's quite similar to Cyberpunk, when it's like choose your origin story, and that doesn't affect. They say like this will change everything in the game, whether you're a nomad or a corpo or whatever the other one was, street kid. Mm-hmm. But all that happens is there's an occasional line of dialogue that's different, and there's like each one of them get one different quest in the middle of the game. And I think that is the problem sometimes with these games that are so huge. They can't really offer too much divergence, because if you make every quest have a different outcome, then every quest after that needs to be different. And when you're making a game that's 50, 60, 80 hours long, it just can't be done. Like that was always a big problem when games kind of started to reach this point back in the kind of late noughties, when you had a lot of choice-based RPG. It was a really big thing BioWare, like you pick your own ending, pick your own outcome, pick which way you did things. But then in the end, you can't really go anywhere with that, because games are only so big. And I think that's just a problem with scale. As scale in games gets bigger, it's going to be harder to give us meaningful choice. It's all going to be an illusion.
Yeah, there's a lot of that illusion here, and it feels strange and off-putting, because it's like that I'm part of the story quality exists, but at some point it just feels like the game completely loses interest in the story altogether.
So do we, in fairness.
Yeah, and so does everyone else, right? Like when you first get to the first big city, you're put on the main quest immediately. You meet Brant, and he's like, there's a fake guy, he's taking your place, the queen's evil. Like it's all laid out for you, and then you have a whole list of different pursuits, right?
Yeah, go to Vermont Castle and do this. Go to Vermont Castle.
Yeah, go to the nameless city. Learn about the false sovereign. Like, and it feels like it's like we're gonna expose this fake sovereign.
Yeah,
we're gonna take down the evil queen, and we're gonna take this city back. And none of that goes anywhere. In fact,
Pawn just gets a stomach ache, and it's like, never mind.
When you get the end of the game is following the false sovereign to where he awakens the final dragon. And all of that could have happened if you had done nothing. Like you could, if you just go back to the mining town where you were enslaved and just wait for him to show up, you could imagine the whole game just not happening.
It's, very Indiana Jones. Like, you have no impact on the story. The Nazis are still going to open the chest, melt the faces.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
have Monster Hunter, Indiana Jones, Cyberpunk,
Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate. I'm going to chuck one more in there. I'm going to see how you two react to this.
It's really
Dead
like
Rising.
Hi-Fi Rush.
No. Even better. From the moment I played and you run into those time quests and you're like, oh, I've got to get this stuff done specifically to how Dragon's Dogma wants it.
Mhm.
All I could think about was how it's like Dead Rising.
A Capcom game, time quest. I do see it. I do. It's not as stupid. I think you feared that was going to be as a suggestion. I do definitely see that. I think it's interesting because obviously we've been waiting a very long time for a new Dead Rising, and it seems like the perfect game for a lot of the stuff that is in Dragon's Dogma, right? Like random occurrences that happen around the map. A lot of, we haven't really spoken about this, which we definitely should, but the limited fast travel, so you've got to walk everywhere, puts a lot of reliance on planning ahead for your journey. There is, I think, a lot of that in here, but on such a big scale that the shortcomings feel a lot more noticeable.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, let's talk about the fast travel stuff. Meg and I were focused on the microtransactions of it all, so we don't have to do that again. But from a design and like gameplay, how did it make you feel that it was such a burden to fast travel anywhere?
This was why it surprised me, because I don't like the modern Zelda games. Tried both of them, got about 10-15 hours into both of them, and I just had I don't know, some kind of foundational issue with you can go everywhere and do whatever you want. I just didn't feel the freedom that other people felt with it. So I had reservations about Dragon's Dogma. And actually, I also felt the same about Elden Ring. There's probably a skill issue thing in there as well, I'm sure. But like, I didn't really vibe with that either. So this new open world embracing freedom idea, I was never really that sure on. And obviously, I'm throwing more references in there, but we've just had Final Fantasy VII and Infinite Wealth, which both... Final Fantasy kind of loses its way a little bit towards the end, but both use quite tight, compact maps that encourage you just to explore. I was really concerned that Dragon's Dogma 2 was just going to be quite dull, because I'm just not going to like walking from here to there. I'm just not going to... you can meet a troll, I don't care. But actually, as I played it, I found that I was really enjoying... I was enjoying the journey rather than the destination.
Oh no!
But I did really, I did really feel like actually playing the game and enjoying just not having to tick things off a checklist. Oh, I need to do this or this or this. Probably because I didn't care about the story. Probably because I wasn't really that bothered. Like when I was going to Batal, I wasn't really bothered about. You've got to deliver a message. First of all, I was a beast and didn't do any of the smuggling stuff, but I didn't really care about why I was going there. I just went there and was, the desert setting, that's nice, that's quite interesting. As soon as you get there, it was a griffin that flew overhead and I ended up in a big fight. So I just liked being out and about in the world. And I think that is its real, not saving grace, because it's not like it needs that. It's still a pretty good game, and I still think it'll end up on my Game of the Year list, though I'm less sure of that than the other AAA games that I've played this year. But yeah, I think it's hard to define why it's enjoyable to be in this world. And that's why I've always struggled when people have tried to convince me that I'm wrong about Zelda. Because I think it's hard to just say, I had a nice time doing Nout. But that is how I feel about Dragon's Dogma. I'm a lot sweeter on taking away something that's clearly easy and convenient to aid the player experience.
Yeah, I think that's just the strength of it in general. Is it's the journey that you have. Like the destination is crap. Like I haven't made a story yet, but I haven't cared once. Like I like my pawn. I like my character, kind of, because it's just me. Like I care about that because it's the investment I put into it, not what Dragon's Dogma has put into it. But that works in the sense of like the journeys you make, the stories that we can all tell from our playtimes of it. That's what's special about it. It's such a, I hate this term, but a water cooler game.
Yeah, I think the pawns really help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. That's what helps it a lot. Like the design of the environments, it's just really fun to walk around and look at the shape of the world. It's also can be quite frustrating to try to get around because so much of it is inaccessible. It's a very linear open world in a lot of ways because the water cuts you off from going where you want to go, and mountains, and there's a lot of things that look open that are actually just corridors. And the not having free access to fast travel didn't bother me much, except when I got myself stuck in a corner somewhere and knew that I was going to have to walk all the way back the way I came because the design of the world was so limiting. And so I think like there is, to a certain degree, it does discourage exploration because after a couple times of like me just like going out to see what's out there and then having to walk all the way back the way I came because there was no way to loop around, I was like, well, I'm not going to waste my time wandering if I'm not going to have a way to get back. So that was the only thing for me.
I feel like the bigger problem I had with it is I've had enough fairy stones pretty much the whole game, like enough that using them is important. Like I know I should save it when I really need it, but never like limited enough that I'm there thinking that I can't get back somewhere. But my real problem is like the port crystals. I have like 2. There are literally 2 on my map besides one I've placed stupidly that I should have placed somewhere else. Like, I don't know if that changes as you play more. Like maybe I've just not explored enough, but that's my biggest issue with it. So far.
You don't get a lot. To be honest, I just haven't used them at all. It's not a kind of I'm going to play the way the developers intended. I just a little bit like a health potion. Really, I've just been like I might need it later. So I've just gotten used to not placing them anyway. And I think there are definitely parts of it that are frustrating. Well, I think what probably eases it for me, and it doesn't help you when you end up in a dead end, I realise, but when you're going to a specific place, like when you go to Batal for the first time, it's probably the longest journey anyone undertakes, especially if you go from the start in town all the way around, is even the areas you haven't unlocked on your map, the lines for the roads are still on there. You can't kind of go directly downwards because not just because there's the sea there, but there's no pathway, so you know there's probably going to be a mountain. You know when you have to loop up and down. You know when you come to a fork in the road, even though one is going towards the quest marker, that stops, and this one that veers off to the left. That one actually will take you there once you loop around. So there are definitely parts of that are frustrating, and I think the problem is there are some parts that are frustrating by design, and there's then some parts of it that are frustrating just because it's quite a buggy game, and it's also quite dull in places. You're not really sure if you've done a quest properly or if you should have done something differently because there's, the queen dies and nothing happens. So I think that doesn't help it because you're always left wondering, is this like this on purpose or has something gone wrong? And I think that takes away from the impact of any deliberate touches that the game has.
I know a lot of this stuff really impressed the guides writers who are all like collaborating, like, oh, did you figure out how to do it this way or that way? And if you've the kind of person that plays games over and over and you can remember little differences, I guess that's cool too. But don't most people just play games once and they'll never know if any of these things, like, how can something impress you if you have to play the game 3 times to notice a subtle difference?
I think that's the problem. It's so subtle and also not very telegraphed that you've done something differently. Because we were talking before about the BioWare choices. I know when I play Mass Effect, say, as a Renegade, I know that I'm getting a slightly different pathway to the Paragon. I know that when I take this companion, different things happen. I know that if I choose to do a certain pathway with Legion, then that might block off something with Tali. I know I have kind of key choices to make along there. And I'm aware that if I play it differently, I can romance someone differently, I can play as a Paragon, I can take different. So I think it is possible to appreciate there are different ways to have approached this, even when you only play it once. But the problem with Dragon's Dogma is it's things like, oh, if you do this, then instead of there being a bunny on the map, it's a deer.
Yeah,
So I don't care.
does
I don't
seem
care
that
about
way.
that. That's not a thing that I'm bothered about.
Though there's also that there's so much you may or may not find in a playthrough just because the world is so big. Like I played the whole game and I didn't find the Sphinx. I didn't do any of that stuff.
No, I haven't seen the Sphinx still.
Yeah, me neither, actually.
So like that I can at least appreciate, because like that's the same with Fallout or Skyrim or stuff. There's like in Fallout you'll just not find one of the vaults that has a really cool story in it. It's just in Dragon's Dogma there are no cool stories.
Yeah,
I think
beasts.
like the very best sequences in that game are critical path stuff. The fighting your way up the mountain to take on the first Drake, and then like on your way up there's all those stone statue people, and that's when you realize, oh, the Medusa's here too. Like that whole sequence is phenomenal. And then I don't know if either of you have gotten here yet, but the robot that comes out of the sea,
yeah,
that whole thing is insane.
Yeah,
That's one of the cool. Yeah, that's an amazing sequence. Following that thing all the way across the map is so cool. But those are like critical path scripted things that you just can't miss. That's just like part of the main thing. And I wish the game was more of that.
Yeah, I wish it leaned in one direction more than the other. It feels like it hedges between them a bit too much. But I feel the combat and the movement are so good that I don't really mind. It's strange. I'm in the world of Dragon's Dogma and I just do not care about what's happening, like, at all. Besides, like, picking up naught as a word to use every now and again. Like, it made no impact on me. But because the combat is so satisfying, because the vocations are so fun to switch between, and because it always feels like there is something to discover in the world, even if what you find is like an ingot in a chest and that's it. Like, they keep dragging me back, those moments, and all the emergent gameplay stuff. But like, story-wise, yeah, not interested at all.
Go ahead.
I think the stuff with the Sphinx, there's a lot of confidence that the game has, which we haven't really touched on. We have all been somewhat critical of it. I do think it's a step below the kind of 10 out of 10 masterpiece generation-defining game. I think it's just a pretty good AAA game. And that is enough for me. It's enough for me to enjoy and have a nice time with it. I'll be writing about it at the end of the year, etc., etc. I wrote about it a lot while it's been out. But I think its biggest quality is kind of away from the individual experiences that we have, which tends to be what we do when we do these roundtables. It's just how confident and assertive the game is in what it wants to do. Part of that is that not having the fast travel. Part of that is the you might not find the Sphinx. Sphinx is kind of the iconic character for the game, one who's really pushed and advertised. Possible to just miss it. And the other thing we haven't talked about, obviously, is the Dragon's Plague. There's just a lot in this game where Capcom we are doing it our way and live with it. And I think that sometimes is to its detriment, because I feel like I'm going to inspire a lot of wrath here, but I don't think generally Capcom is very good narratively compared to some other studios, even across all of its games. I don't think that's an area where it necessarily excels. And I think the commitment to doing it the Capcom way, in the same way that sometimes doing it the Square Enix way, as we've seen, can give you some really cool moments and can also lead to some really obvious blind spots.
Chadley.
Yeah, I love that the game has enough confidence to do things its own way, and it doesn't reach the peak of a thing like Alan Wake, and which I know obviously Eric you love an awful lot. But I think they both come from a similar line of thinking of we want to do it our way, as opposed to looking at how did the last 5 years worth of AAA games, how did they do it? Because there are a lot of games like that where they don't necessarily have that much identity. They just look at what is a successful way to make a video game. And I appreciate that Dragon's Dogma at least seems to have its own viewpoints on things.
Yeah, especially in the wake of Rebirth, which I'm really enjoying, but still leans on like Ubisoft-esque maps we have to.
Yes, the open world in Rebirth is definitely a symptom of taking things that have worked in other games before. As much as I like Final Fantasy, there's a lot of you go here and do some fights. You go here and open up a attack tower, or a what they're called. Open up the area of the map. You can see the tower. They've probably got a name. Can't remember them. Yeah, they're just a tower. Just tower. There's a racing mini game. This thing works in another game. There's a lot of like tried and tested ideas. And you need that sometimes, but I do appreciate that Dragon's Dogma is a bit more creative with it.
Yeah.
And really creative with the vocations too, George, which you brought up.
Yeah. What are you two playing as? What's your main?
So I started Archer and was not enjoying it at all. I thought it was pretty boring, and I play Archer in a lot of games, and I tried to stick with it and unlock some stuff, and it was just more ways to fire arrows. And I thought that was fine, but then after doing the Nameless Village stuff and discovering the Thief Guild, and then they hand you weapons and armor and they give you some special skills, I was like, I guess it's my calling to become a thief now, and I love that. I had a blast with Thief. I maxed that out, and then in the late game you unlock the hybrid ones. But I didn't. It was so late game that I just finished the game. Like I couldn't level them up fast enough. Because the end of that game goes really fast. The pacing of the game gets really weird. You fight the first Drake, and then you can pretty much go to the end of the game from there. So, like, when you climb that mountain and fight the Drake, you meet the guy at the top that gives you the Mystic Spear Hand thing, which I thought was so cool. I remember that from the trailers. The one you can, like, teleport around, and you've got the long spear. But then I was so close to the end of the game that I couldn't get it leveled up enough to use it. So I just had to switch back to Thief and finish the game. And then so I got the Mystic Spear Hand, and then I also got the one where you don't fight, you just make the clones.
Trickster.
The Trickster, I did not even bother with it. I thought that sounded so dumb. Maybe a cool idea, a cool thing if my pawns could have it, but they can't. That's only you can do it. And you spray the dust, and then you summon the clone, and I don't know. I didn't even get to see what like new things it unlocks, because I was like, I'm not playing a class where I don't fight anything.
Yeah.
That's so weird. And then I did not find the Jack of all trades one or the Mystic Archer. I would have liked to try both of those, but I've
got the Mystic Archer, but I haven't had much fun with it compared to like just normal Archer. Like it feels like it's overcomplicating it. Archer's the way. I love just firing my arrows, drop kicking people. Feels great.
Do you play Archer in other games, George?
No, never.
No, neither do I. I wonder if that's the symptom, because I really love Archer as well. And Eric, you said you play Archer all the time and hate it. I wonder if it's Archer for babies.
It's cooler in Monster Hunter.
It does feel like it. I thought I'd be all about the Thief. I was like, straight in on this. You know, this is my class for all time, and then instantly switched to Archer. I was like, this is way better.
I was Fighter for a little bit.
Cool. Thief, I think Thief really hits its stride when you get the rope. Because as soon as you get the rope, you can start pulling dudes towards you, and you can stick them on the ground and do really like punishing stuff that way. I don't know. Thief was so fun. It felt like playing Wolverine. You're just like ripping dudes' spines out with your claws.
My main pawn is a Thief.
I want to try out. There's so many I want to try out, which speaks to how well Dragon's Dogma handles them. They do all feel really distinct. It amazes me that it has so many combat styles in one, and you always feel like there's something else you can just go try out if you want to. Even if you're doing the same thing over and over, like I feel like with the Archer specifically, I am just drop kicking and then doing the really powerful arrow and then doing like the volley, and that's it. But they all feel really good, so I don't really mind.
You can build each one so differently as well, because I'm thinking as you described that, my Archer build I think is quite different to yours, because I've got the one where it's the really powerful, the Death Arrow, and the one where it's like it spins around and pins the little goblins to the wall, and the one that aims 3 at a time I really like. And there's one where it's just like rapid fire, which is such a strange one. I'm not sure I like it, because I feel like I could just do this myself. I know it's faster, but it's just like pew pew pew. Which probably is why it's Archer for babies, because there's no aiming or anything like that. It's just going to vaguely go near the thing.
There's no ammo.
Oh yeah, there's no ammo. Only ammo if you want to use like the electric bolts,
which no one does.
I equipped it once when I went like an inn and got the upgrades, and then I realized they were consumable. And then, much like the fairy stone stuff, I was like, well, I'm never using them again. I don't like that I have to spend them on things. So back in the pack they go.
I do use the fairy stones is when you die, right? Or no?
Fairy stones is
whetstones when you die, right? Yeah. Is it called the whetstones? Not called whetstones.
Wake stones. Wake stones? I use my wake stones when I'm too annoyed to respawn. If I fall off a cliff by accident, I'm just like, whatever, and I just use one. But then on the last boss, I had 2. And I was really struggling to get through it. I was using I was eating up every rotten apple in my inventory, trying to get through that the last boss. And then on the attempt where I succeeded it, I didn't use a single wake stone. Isn't that how it always goes, though? Once you figure out the fight, you don't actually need any of your healing stuff.
I do appreciate that for all it's like one save slot, and it's not too punishing with death and those sorts of things, because sometimes those games, if you haven't saved, okay, back to 3 hours ago, because it's got the auto save, probably to avoid save scum, and I know, but I do appreciate that when you die in a fight, it takes you back to, I know you lose a little bit of health on your main health bar, but it basically takes like around the corner. You can see like the griffin or the dragon just kind of like waiting for you, but you can just choose. No, I'm okay. I don't want to go to Batal that badly.
All right. Any final things to touch on before we wrap up?
No, I don't feel the same as George. I feel like we've all been a bit more critical than we actually feel about the game, just because it's hard to talk about things that you like about it, because it's just, I like playing it and having fun. And you talk about things that are wrong with it, and you've got a big list of this should be, and this should be, and this should be.
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend it to people to play and have a good time. But if you want to kind of chat about what it's good and bad about it, I think I would probably find more to talk about in the things that I think it does poorly. But maybe that's what makes it more enjoyable for some people. That there is a lot to kind of sink your teeth into. It makes you care about it in a way that I think some blander games that we would be more or less critical of just don't. I think there's blander games that would be less critical of that are worse, but that have less obviously just kind of spiky about them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, cool. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. You can find more Dragon's Dogma 2 coverage link down in the description. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's The Gamer, no space.